Hi. Um, it might also be worth noticing that it was very nice from Ruby to invite us. So thank you, Kamil. Thank you, Nikosha. Yeah, and Gago, who is not here. I think he's in Amsterdam. Okay. Um, yeah, my talk will be more about specifically YouTube and the different economies that are like somehow engaged in it or derived from it, and it might be a little bit of stating the obvious in the introduction, but I think it's okay. Reciprocal economics. Today we become increasingly aware that visual culture also means visual economy, and the cultural sector, especially in its visual material producing elements, often serves as an example of these procedures. The different currencies that we get used to accept, the symbolic, the imaginary, and the real of today, money, are exchanged, reconfigured, and translated into one another, interweaving symbolic or imaginary orders with modes of production and value generation. Containing all the phenotypes of this economic and technological architecture, on YouTube the whole set of exchanges can literally be observed on one page, eclipsing traditional forms of distribution. And yet, as an intersection of orders on YouTube, the digital meets the image, and not only in the material form of the clip. Watching a video on YouTube fundamentally differs from participating in a screening or seeing a movie at the local Cinemax. Not only is the screen usually a bit smaller and the quality worse, also the antagonism extends to the imagery presented. On YouTube you get a clip, in the cinema you see a film. This distinction is based on the medium, not the content, as YouTube inevitably turns movies into clips. Shifting away from the frontal, one-way situation in which we encounter a movie, a YouTube clip is the start of an exchange that maneuvers through the different economies, slipping from one to the other, leaving no doubt that analog is not only a format but also a logic, and this logic is put under pressure by YouTube's digitality, again being not only its material but a logic. Reciprocity manifests in multiple ways, ranging from comments filled with spamming and scamming, clinging into the symbolic capital amassed by a popular clip, to mock-ups and sequels, arriving at YouTube's quintessential format, the cover. Reciprocity can mean to exchange something imaginary, a clip, for something symbolic, views, click statistics, comments, as well as for money. Your interests might split between monetary and symbolic revenue, or what you get back might come in the form of a mashup of little money, nice comments, and a video response. Usually the things go hand in hand. The more attention a video receives, the more attention is paid, the more financial revenue, and thus the higher the symbolic capital. These exchanges then continue to mutually affect each other, creating more of an ongoing dialogue than a time-specific exchange, where paths separate afterwards. Angel funding. Already in the very beginning of YouTube, there were anti-intuitive economic considerations. Investing millions of dollars in an uncertain venture is called angel funding, as it comes out of the blue, improbable, sent by someone who wants more than monetary reward. What could suit this approach better than a website where the users of the internet create their own mirror image, or rather mirror stage? Reciprocity is contained in the imagery itself. Often the viewer is directly addressed, confronted with somebody talking straight into the camera, leaping the insurmountable barrier of the screen with a winning smile, waiting for response. While in cinema, and most Godard movies, for example, might work here, looking at the camera directly is usually a way to make the film as a medium more apparent, emphasizing its artificiality, the distance between the viewer and the events that once have been in front of the camera. On YouTube, this is a way to bridge the medium, render it transparent, and allow one to immerse him or herself in it. This hints of the structural equality between producer and consumer. Both are probably underprivileged part of YouTube's working class engaging on an eye level with each other. In contrast, Godard. In Le Mépris, for example, showing the very conditions of the movie does not reveal a shitty webcam, but Cinecittà, the famous film studio complex in Rome, where he is working with Fritz Lang. On YouTube, no economic or technological distance needs to be overcome or maintained. The evanescence of this gap, of the medium as an obstacle, turns it strictly functional, undermining the medium's ability to simultaneously deliver a message and a massage in the way McLuhan understood it. Today, this task has to be executed by special wellness videos, taking advantage of YouTube's medial transparency and immediacy, allowing the viewer to immerse himself and feel as if in a spa. It might be difficult for me to find.
So the desktop? Yes.
How me too. It's been a long one, but it's a good thing that you're here. You can relax now. I'm gonna do a facial for you today. All you gotta do is just sit right where you are and just relax, recline, and lay your head back, and I'll do the rest. Okay? Okay, great. Let's get started then. The first thing that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna apply these little pads to your eyes for a second. This is kind of similar to applying cucumber slices to your eyes. It reduces puffiness and it makes your skin feel really refreshed. All you've got to do is relax a minute.
The canyons. Being financially underprivileged extends to a certain parts of Hollywood today, and YouTube is also their solution. At first sight, Paul Schrader's feature film, The Canyons, looks like a typical Hollywood production, but the rifts opened by the constraints of working within the conditions of a YouTube economy are quite apparent. Given the aforementioned procedures of reciprocity, in order to get a sense of how much the symbolic and the imaginary is translated, reformulated, and folded into YouTube, we'll take a look at this project situated at the threshold of traditional filmmaking, entering the logics of YouTube's algorithms. Paul Schrader was successful in the 70s and 80s. He wrote the script for Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. He directed seminal films like American Gigolo or Autofocus. For his recent project, though, he didn't get money from the big studios, so he gathered a small team that, like him, had nothing left but their symbolic capital inherited from a glorious past. Bret Easton Ellis wrote the screenplay, Lindsay Lohan plays the lead, and the porn actor James Dean is her counterpart. Gus Van Sant has a cameo. In an attempt to turn their symbolic capital into budget, they use crowdfunding, asking their future audience for both money and approval, selling everything from visits to the set to a money clip Schrader got from De Niro on the set of Taxi Driver. From the very beginning, the tensions of filmmaking under precarious conditions were incorporated in the project itself. It was advertised via a clip on YouTube, evoking at the same time the magic of film while depicting dilapidated cinemas in downtown LA. A first glimpse of the ubiquitous self-reflexivity the project would develop. The New York Times printed a noir-style story retelling events on the set, or as Dean put it, life events reflected in a mirror and then retold for dramatic effect. Doubling the plot centered around cynical, beautiful 20-somethings that try to make it in the movies, a description that not only fits the characters, but also the actors who embody them. The movie wasn't sponsored by the institution in whose legacy it was made, and also it might never make it to the cinema. As Schrader says, it's cinema for the post-theatrical era. This way of working is relying on a fragile system of immediate response toward the reactions it encounters, that are then included in either the myth or the budget. The project has to generate the demand for the imaginary content it will deliver, or at least has to know what kind of imaginary is in demand, while at the same time transporting its creator's vision. Marketing, directing, conceiving and reception happen simultaneously, as it keeps in constant contact with its future critics and viewers. If it fails, there is no monetary compensation. Everybody on the set of The Canyons worked for a more or less symbolic reward. The two main actors for $100 a day, the interns for a shirt saying, "I worked on the set of The Canyons and all I got was this lousy t-shirt." Schrader and Alice did so to realize an artistically ambitious project, echoing the way Hollywood filmmaking was working in its golden ages. They stressed this by 3 trailers in different styles resembling peak moments of Hollywood, all published via YouTube. The Canyons is interesting to observe because it renders the tensions apparent that exist between a movie and a clip, between a film based on one or several authors, emphatically understood, and a product based on market research, between comments or view statistics and a review in the New York Times, between asking an anonymous crowd in the internet for funding and a professional producer. In short, differences exist between a subject and a statistical, mathematical model, measured in numbers, not in quality of any sort. In The Canyons, both models are equally addressed and need to be balanced. More and more feature film Hollywood productions are based on preliminary market research, digging into people's propensities to look at, often taking on the form of little YouTube clips to figure that out, before the movie is then modeled after these quantified desires. YouTube became a test site for the visual industry. The results affect the way the product looks, which might in turn be released via a different channel, cinema, printed press, or TV. A clip is an end in itself. It is valid only as long as it pleases, keeps one entertained, and after its 15 minutes are over, it is forgotten without a demand for surplus value. Spring Breakers is a make-it-maxi version of a clip and its logic. It extended ad absurdum and only loosely held together by fragments of narration. And we might look at a short clip, but without no. Oh. Because this is the musician that was the role model for the main male character in Spring Breakers. This is not a flaw. No. Spring Breakers is a make-it-maxi version of a clip and its logic, extended ad absurdum and only loosely held together by fragments of narration. This is not a flaw, rather, it is exactly the point. I can enter and leave its stream of contemporary unconsciousness whenever I please, catapulting the viewer back into the early days of cinema, when you wouldn't attend a certain screening, but just come and leave in the middle of looped movies, when cinema had yet to develop its own language, or a language at all. Sartre remembers how he visited the cinema with his mother as a child. I was 7 years old and I could read and write. Cinema was 12 years old and couldn't talk. Film, as an art form, developed later. When Sartre went there with his mother, they were sitting amongst people they wouldn't have talked to in daylight, and the male members of the family never went there. Later film became a bourgeois luxury, literate, symbolic, but this is not what the proletarians that inhabit YouTube can afford. They are aiming at the imaginary, at their dreams and desires. The prototype and YouTube's greatest hits are the cute, the funny, the awkward. They are its stars, its role models, failures and kittens, and then there are celebrities catering to the constant hunger for tabloid content. It seems to inevitably result in cover versions of pop songs, sung by cute, clumsy little kids. A prominent example of the effect these procedures can have might be Nicki Minaj's Super Bass, and the subsequent cover done by 2 little kids. This cover became a huge hit with around 40 million views, resulting in a collaboration. The video of Minaj meeting the 2 girls in a TV show and ultimately performing in a trio has even surpassed the cover in its fame. They catalyzed and capitalized upon each other. Need a little bit. Oh.
With the cooling system, he will, he might get a bill, he pop balls and I got a rack on a bill, he fall, dope, master cup, he goes in the air, but in the blood like Jim. Chip, 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 money make you chip, chip, kiss him all, always in the car.
Okay, yeah. This The two girls got their own show, one of the rare cases where not only a video of an unknown person became famous, but also the person staring in it. So much success in attention seeking doesn't go unnoticed. The list of people they hosted in their sub-format Tea Time with Sophia Grace and Rosie are, for example, Miley Cyrus, Katy Perry, and Justin Bieber, himself the product of a mashup between a cute teen and a famous song, and so far YouTube's most prominent offspring. So there they sit, awkward, not having anything to say, two products of people's desires as they were expressed via YouTube, forced together by their shared dependence upon them. While the processes described above are happening within YouTube or are engaged with it, this is not the end of the circle. The attention paid is not lost after ads are sold and skipped. Instead, the intention enters the mesh of Google and YouTube's data storage and mining. Today, YouTube is the largest search engine, second only to its parent companies. Complementary to Google's linguistical model, on YouTube, users search for their imaginary, for images. Right now, it's hard to say how that can be capitalized upon, but multi-million insights into desires, wishes, etc. are likely to be a very valuable resource. In a Black Mirror episode, an artificial human is modeled after the online behavior, the selfie, and this is what Boa's going to talk more about, of a deceased. Even if we might not encounter this anytime soon, while we don't have a humanoid at home, Google and YouTube might have millions of digital versions, avatars, in their servers, ready to let them take a digital shopping spree that might indeed result with our favorite items in the bag.